All the way from the start, I can feel it in my heart, like all the way from the start.
Hey, what's going on out there? I'm Sean Devine. Hope you all are doing well. Today I've got a new video. This is by request, and we are going to be covering some topics for how to create space and separation in your mixes. This is something a lot of you have expressed interest in. Many of you may be having some issues with creating this separation. It just sounds like your entire mix is flat, a little bit boring, and you want to have more dynamics, you want more impact, and you want to be able to effectively guide your listener through the arrangement of the song more effectively. So let's go ahead and dive in here. I'm going to talk about these topics, but I'm also going to let you hear some actual examples of how I'm utilizing these things that we're going to talk about in one of my sessions. First topic we're going to talk about with creating space and separation in your mix is to control the energy. And this applies to frequency as well as levels for all the elements across your session. So the most obvious one that you all are familiar with, I'm sure, is utilizing EQ to carve out different frequencies. We talk a lot on the channel about, doing this for the low end and getting rid of a lot of the low end off of all the elements, other than the bass that we want to really focus on, which would be the kick, the 808, the sub, all that type of stuff, and then just clearing everything out below there so we have a more focused low end. But this doesn't just apply to the low end. This is also something that you want to effectively and actively do across, mid frequencies. I find a lot of mud and murk between 200 and 500, so I might carve out some space there. You'll see on this guitar track, I'm cutting 10 dB at about 1K. Now, why would I do that? It's because obviously a guitar has a lot of the same frequency energy as a vocal. So my vocal has a lot of 1K in it. And so I want to give the perspective that this guitar is there, but I don't want it clashing with my vocals. So let's just solo this real quick, and you can hear the difference with the EQ. So this is with the EQ disabled. Okay, now with. So it may sound a little bit thinner on its own, but in the context of the mix, when you hear it with the vocal, you'll see why I did that.
Recognize how we do it. Just stepped outside and it's fluid. Some hesitate and we knew it, but we ain't gotta overthink through it. They recognize how we do it. Just stepped outside and it's fluid.
Now, this also goes for high frequency boosting. If you want to bring attention, you want to create separation for certain elements, I'm typically doing very aggressive boosting to my vocals in the high end because that's what I want to be sitting in that space. So to go along with that, you're creating that separation, but if we were to get carried away and do these really aggressive boosts to everything just because you want it to sound brighter and more exciting, then you're not going to have that separation. That vocal's not going to sound as exciting because it's fighting with a guitar track or a piano that is just as bright. So again, we're guiding the listener. Which one do you want them to really focus on? And you create separation by having, one element that's going to occupy that high end, have that really aggressive boost. And then the other may be a little bit more dull. Maybe you're cutting some of the low end out of a piano, out of a guitar, out of, maybe the background vocals aren't going to be as bright. So you're going to roll off a lot of high end. You've got to choose which one is going to shine, which one's going to be more of a supporting role. All right, so next topic, compression, very loaded one, especially in this context. But the key with compression, multiband compression, active EQ, all these things that we're using to control dynamics. Sometimes we use this as a glue to where if we've got something in the mix that is poking out, so we've got an unpleasant separation, maybe in a vocal line that the performance is very just kind of all over the place in terms of level, or maybe you have another element that you want to kind of tuck back in, but you want the dynamic range to be very consistent. That's where compression comes in. It can be very handy. It can also, give you the power to put things more up front and have them with that consistency by heavily compressing and then just bringing up the level of a track. So we are making that very much a focal point for the listener. But I do want to caution you about using compression in that way. It's the same kind of thing we're talking about with the EQ. You know, if you high boost everything, you get less separation. If you compress everything and then you're just bringing up level, we're just going to end up with a big, squashed pancake of a mix. So you want to be very picky and choosy about where you're utilizing compression and how much of it you're using to provide that glue, but to also bring focal points into the mix. Finally, along with controlling energy, you simply have leveling and balancing. So if we look across my mixer, there are just tons of varying levels here. And you've got to, again, pick and choose what's going to be at the forefront in terms of level. And then there's other things that just can't all be loud. There's a lot of power in these faders, just in where you sit it in terms of level. And even if you have something that's very quiet, utilizing compression or EQ, you can still make it a little bit more noticeable, something that you can pick up on in the mix. We're also going to talk about some other ways in terms of utilizing the stereo field here in a minute, that even if it's very quiet, it's still there. It's still going to do what it needs to do. You can't turn up all your faders in the mix and just expect everything to work. That's why this is called a balance. We've got to pick and choose. And again, just the basic leveling is crucial to creating that balance. Okay, so just to be clear, I don't want to confuse you because I utilized a pre-delay.